Peace through strength. It's been a Republican slogan since the days of Ronald Reagan. In this week's magazine, we take a look at what that means for today and whether Donald Trump might actually be following it. And I'm joined this week by Michael Lucchese, who wrote the piece, authored the piece. So when you see peace through strength, what does it mean to you?
Thanks for having me on, Jim.
Sure.
I think that peace through strength is really an expression of what America's role in the world really is. And I think it's an acknowledgement of the realities of the ideological conflicts that define contemporary foreign policy. Russia, China, Iran, they have their own sort of ideological vision for a global revolution, and the United States stands opposed to that. So peace through strength, when Reagan used that slogan, was really a statement about the dangers of Soviet communism. And I think now, when Republicans use the phrase, including Donald Trump, I think it harkens back to that in some ways, perhaps in a somewhat confused way, but I think that's really what they're groping towards.
So obviously a big part of peace through strength is deterrence, and the idea that a strong military will make people less likely to become bad actors on the global stage, or at least not manifest their bad actorness in the same ways and threaten the United States directly. But as we've seen splits, even among conservatives on foreign policy, there are a lot of differences of opinion as to what that means.
Yeah, and obviously within the current Trump administration, there are a few different camps, right? So I think that you have more traditional Republican hawks. Maybe Marco Rubio is kind of a representative of that class. Sure. You have more restrained-minded people, Elbridge Colby, J.D. Vance, people like that. But it seems to me that Donald Trump largely is sort of leaning towards the Rubio camp rather than the Colby-Vance camp right now, at least on a number of important issues, most notably on Russia issues. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that's because that's where the Republican base is right now. The Republican base doesn't want to just cut and run from our alliances. They understand that peace through strength, it does mean a strong military, but it also means a strong alliance system. Working with like-minded countries all over the world to actually build up that strength that we need to deter our enemies.
So you mentioned that President Trump does seem to be a little bit more in the Rubio camp, at least since the summertime. That is a break from what certain people expected, although not everyone. Some people did expect that maybe he would keep more in this mold, and we do have the experience of his first term to look back on. But do you find that a bit surprising?
Yeah, so I think that Trump, obviously, when he was out of power after losing the 2020 election, he did take this sort of more dovish line on Ukraine. But we have to remember, first of all, he gave lethal aid to the Ukrainians. We shouldn't just think about this war as beginning in 2022. It began in 2014, and Trump gave lethal aid in ways that even Biden did not, as the war got as hot as it did. But I also think that he's been really put off by Vladimir Putin and his intransigence, right? I think that he realizes that Putin is targeting civilians, he is violating international law, and that he is, frankly, the aggressor here. And that's something that I think a lot of the sort of more ideological restrainer elements, isolationist elements in the Trump coalition didn't expect. And so that's why I think there's a little bit of howling and wailing in those circles right now.
And there does definitely seem to be, for the benefit of both camps, Trump sort of uses them sometimes, play good cop, bad cop in his negotiations. Some of them are part of a larger negotiating strategy.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the big shifts that you're seeing with the Trump administration right now is that they're encouraging Europe to step up and actually meet their defense spending requirements, right? And I think you're seeing a real shift from under Biden and Obama. There was an emphasis on working with Berlin and with Paris, and now I think Warsaw is sort of one of the leading allies for the United States in Eastern Europe right now, and perhaps Kyiv will join them someday too, especially as they look to become more integrated in the European Union.
And I guess we'll see in the coming days how much daylight there is between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think if you look at Trump's actions in the Middle East, I think they're a really great example of what the Trump base wants when it comes to peace through strength, right? So the Vandenberg Coalition, a national security group here in D.C., they've been doing some polling lately of Trump Republicans, people who voted for him in the last election, and they found that well over 80% of voters of those Trump voters support the strikes on Iran to take out their nuclear program, right? And so that sort of hit them hard, hit them fast, hit them so they don't get back up. That is very much a sort of peace through strength thing, right? And I think the restrainer isolationist camp, they sort of said, well, maybe this will start World War III. And Trump said, no, I'm going to end this right now. So it is about restoring deterrence in that way, right? And that isn't to say that there isn't friction between the Israelis or the Americans right now, or that Netanyahu and Trump have different goals. I think they do. I think that's very obvious. But I do think that in terms of what the base wants, right, they do want us to hit our enemies, and they don't want us to be particularly merciful right now.
Thank you, Michael.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
Definitely. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can read Michael's full story by clicking here on our digital magazine.